So good morning and welcome to everyone joining for this international breakfast meeting. This is the 7th year of international breakfast meeting, and unfortunately the 2nd year in a row that we are forced to hold it online due to the cancellation of Board Düsseldorf following on from the unfortunate COVID situation that is continuing. But I am all the more delighted that Board Düsseldorf are continuing to support us and are organizing this breakfast meeting with us online for the 2nd year. So very much thank you to Petros Miklidakis, Lina Beckmann and the entire team of Board Düsseldorf. But I am confident, and we are confident, that next year for the 8th edition of this breakfast meeting, we'll be back in Düsseldorf, live and in color, and then I promise finally we can serve you breakfast again, as is the name of this event, and maybe a coffee as well if you're lucky. We always try to choose a topic that is really of high relevance to the boating industry. And this year we have chosen a topic that is really center stage for a lot of our companies, which is about trade opportunities, trade issues, supply chain challenges, which are really affecting the business on a day-to-day basis. We've seen some positive developments in the last months almost. The trade war between the EU and the US has calmed down since the 1st of January. There's a suspension on the tariffs on recreational boats coming from the US into the EU. So there has been some positive developments, but we're still seeing many issues in relation to Brexit as well, the new channel border that we have with the United Kingdom. We're seeing many issues with supply chains, and all of this is really causing big issues for companies up and down Europe. So this is what we want to discuss today: supply chain challenges and trade opportunities, solutions to the challenges, and also potential future trends that we're seeing in terms of exports and opportunities there as well. To discuss all of this, we really have an exciting lineup today. First of all, we have a representative of the European Commission, and then we will move through different perspectives on this topic. First of all, with the boating industry, where we have a boat builder, then a supplier. Then we will have someone from the automotive sector to present their challenges and solutions to the supply chain issue and other trade topics as well. So this is something very exciting for this morning. This will all be followed by a Q&A at the end, so please do get your questions ready. You can already put them into the Q&A as we speak, and then we will try and take as many questions as possible at the end during the Q&A. As you have been notified, this event is being recorded. We're doing this so that your colleagues who are not able to join this morning can still watch the event afterwards. If you have any technical questions, any issues, just put them into a chat and we will try to respond to them. And you can also use the chat to network and exchange and discuss the topics of this morning's breakfast meeting. So enough for me. Without further ado, I wanted to introduce our first two speakers who will introduce a bit the topic and give us some words of welcome from our partner, Board Düsseldorf. And first to Petros Miklidakis, who is the project director of Board Düsseldorf. So Petros, over to you.
Thank you very much, Philip. A wonderful good morning to our friends and partners of Board Düsseldorf. And yes, we are sad that we are not able welcoming you this year to Düsseldorf. We have had prepared almost everything to be able to run the show, but unfortunately, the Ministry of Health saw the situation as too difficult, and due to the Omicron spread, not possible to run a show like Board Düsseldorf, which is from one side understandable, but from the other side, and this is also what we will hear today, there are a lot of challenges which we have to face and the industry has to face. And therefore, it's good that we have a digital meeting, but of course, nothing can replace a personal meeting, a talk between people in person. And we are very confident that this will be the case at Board Düsseldorf 2023, which we will run, and we have already prepared to plan everything for Board so that we are coming back stronger than ever after this break of 2 years. And the next show will run from the 21st to the 29th of January. The topic which EBI and we have chosen this year is a very important one. Of course, it's always important, but the challenges the industry is facing in this period are, of course, huge. The supply chain is something which affects us all, and we hope that we will have some solutions today which can be followed, and finding solutions is a way to face the challenges and of course to be prepared for the future also. We are very happy to have so many of you with us, and I hope that you will enjoy this B2B session of the International Breakfast Meeting in the digital way. I also would like to thank Jean-Pierre Goudon and Philippe Pistel and EBI for supporting us and for running this session. And yeah, the next meeting will come. Personally, I'm more sad that because normally we would have run the Blue Innovation Doc this year, which is a new B2B platform. We have had prepared a beautiful program, a very intensive and interesting program, which will confront us also with the challenges we will have in the future in regards of sustainability. And the sustainability topic is a very important one on many levels of our segment. But we are also planning with EBI to have some digital sessions of the Blue Innovation Doc so that nothing is lost. And of course, next year at Düsseldorf, we will show the full range of topics for the Blue Innovation Doc. Thank you, all of you, for being with us. Thank you again, Philip. Thank you again, Jean-Pierre, and wishing all the best for the EBI breakfast meeting.
Thank you very much, Petros, and we can't wait to be back next year in Düsseldorf. We really can't wait. Robert, please, if you could also continue with some words of welcome and to briefly introduce you. Robert is the CEO of his own company, but he's also the president of the German Water Sports Industry Association, BVWW, and also the president of Boot Düsseldorf. Robert.
Yes, Philip, thank you very much. I want to welcome you all also, as Petros did. And yes, it's Monday. It's the first Monday at Boot Düsseldorf usually, or Tuesday. And we had, yeah, time is running. And I'm looking at Petros, and he's such a brave guy, because we had a lot of telephone calls before Christmas, Christmas days, and the days after Christmas before the final decision came. And Boot Düsseldorf, Petros, his team invested so much work and so much heart into the show. And we absolutely believed it. And when we see what we are discussing today, most of the exhibitors see Boot Düsseldorf also as a B2B platform, and having the opportunity to talk to the suppliers, having the opportunity to talk to the customers, and making better plans in this very difficult situation. So, Petros, we are so unhappy that we cannot meet personally, business-wise, but also personal-wise. But we are happy to meet us here, and I'm looking forward to have a nice meeting here, and wish everybody fun and good information. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. Yes, let's go to fun and information with our first speaker, with our keynote speaker, in fact, to talk about EU trade policy priorities. We have Dr. Christina Rueda-Katri, who works for European Commission Executive Vice President and Commissioner for Trade, Valdis Dombrovskis. Her portfolio covers implementation and enforcement, the trade policy review, the trade relations with the UK, Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, and Latin America. So, Dr. Rueda-Katri, we're very happy that in all of this very intense portfolio, you've found the time to join us this morning and to give us an introduction about where the EU stands with a lot of these current challenges. So, Dr. Rueda-Katri, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Philip, and thank you very much for having invited here and me and in the Commission, which I represent, to the discussion on the trade policy. So I know you support, as an industry, a lot the trade policy, the trade agenda of the EU. So let me start with some facts, because I think it's useful that we remind the economic importance of trade for the EU. So with the latest figures we have that was released last year shows that EU exports support 38 million jobs in all countries across the EU, which is an increase of 9 million jobs in 1 decade. This means that nearly 1 in 5 jobs is linked to EU exports to non-EU countries. In 2020, trade generated almost 40% of the EU's GDP, and these jobs pay out of 12% higher than average. So important figures that we think is good to remind when we speak about trade policy. So we hope all of this will help us to recover faster and emerge from this crisis stronger. Openness will be even more important in the future because 80% of global growth will happen outside the EU in the next decade. So trade is essential for the EU, also if we are to pursue our economic, political and sustainable objectives. It's a trade agenda which is not explicitly about economic benefits, but also we use trade agreements to transport our European values. So, however, despite of these all very good elements, trade agenda has faced increasing hurdles over the last years. To change this trajectory, in the Commission side, we have taken a step forward with what we call the new strategy on trade that we published last year in February. As you might know, it was preceded by the widest engagement with civil society stakeholders and citizens we ever had. And this new strategy seeks to establish a new consensus on trade policy based on openness, on sustainability and on assertiveness. Let me start with the openness component. The EU's network of free trade agreements is central to our strategy. Is the largest one in the world. We have agreements, we have 46 deals with 78 partners. And this is a source of significant strength that we will continue to build. But our trade agenda also depends on our global relationship. And let me start with highlighting 2 key relationships that the EU has with the US and with China. The US remains our most important partner in trade and investment. Our economies are highly integrated, creating jobs and opportunities on both sides of the Atlantic. The ties between the EU and US recreational boating industries, for example, is an example of that. With the Biden administration, we have achieved notable progress in improving transatlantic relations that have set the tone for the EU-US. We have seen that long-standing disputes, for example, on civil aircraft, have been grounded. The tension over digital services taxes has been diffused in light of the global agreement on taxation in OCDE. The EU and the US have also found an interim solution to the tariffs that the US had imposed on EU exports on national security grounds, what they call the 232 measures on steel and aluminum. And we are now working with the US on an agreement which would help decarbonize the steel and aluminum sectors and address the issue of worldwide overcapacity. This is what we call the Global Arrangement on Sustainable Steel and Aluminum. We're also working with the US on a positive agenda in other areas because we think that there is a real chance now to go forward on many issues with the US. We have created or launched the Trade and Technology Council, whose second meeting is going to take place in spring, which is part of this positive agenda. The Council is a new transatlantic platform for working together that should increase transatlantic collaboration, strengthen our technological and industrial leadership, and expand bilateral trade and investment. It addresses mainly changes raised by the digital transition that we think must happen at level playing field and allowing companies to compete on fair terms. And also because we think that novel technologies must not be used to undermine democratic values that both the EU and the US represent and share. The key areas of work in the Trade and Technology Council are standards cooperation, securing supply chains, green tech and climate, and strengthening our collaboration on trade and labor, as well as on trade and climate. So we hope that we, whatever we deliver brings tangible benefits to our companies and citizens. And we think that we only can reach that goals if we are transparent and we engage closely with the stakeholders. On China, our relationship, we have things that are going well and things that are going not that well. For example, Chinese counter-sanctions imposed on members of the European Parliament and think tankers in March have put the comprehensive agreement on investment in the freezer. Even if this agreement is in the EU interest, broader developments of the EU-China relations play a big role in our trade ties. However, disengagement with China is not an option. It remains a key partner to tackle global issues such as climate change, the response to COVID, or reforming global trading rules. So while we must engage with China, we will stand firm in support of universal values and international norms. Let me make the case now for our free trade agreements that create benefits for EU industry, and despite the COVID pandemic, we have seen that individual FTAs are delivering on exports and also bringing duty savings. Beyond tariffs, we also see that the FTAs are useful to reduce tariff barriers, for example, as we have seen helping in the case of the EU-Japan FTA. We are pursuing our bilateral agenda with new negotiations, on ongoing negotiations. For example, we are well advanced with New Zealand, and we expect a conclusion of the trade negotiations in the second half of 2022. With respect with our negotiations with Australia, the recent events regarding the submarine contract still require building trust, but we have already foreseen a round of negotiations in February, which will give us opportunity to reassess. However, in the long term, it does not change the economic and political value of a trade agreement with Australia, which remains a key partner in the Indo-Pacific region, and also a like-minded partner when we speak about negotiations in the WTO and reform of the WTO. I would also like to bring up the modernization of our trade agreement with Chile that will have the state-of-the-art in sustainability and will also create more level playing field as regards access to raw materials. India is also on the plate since the decision by the EU and Indian leaders last year in May to relaunch negotiations. Since then, the Commission is preparing the negotiations, both internally and also through consultations with Member States and EU businesses. A very important part of the open agenda is a commitment to strengthen multilateralism. So we are very committed to the WTO agenda, and more importantly, to show leadership in the needed reform of WTO. You know that the ministerial conference was also postponed due to the pandemic, as the boat exhibition. But the work continues to show that that the WTO is ready to contribute to tackling some of the most important challenges, such as the response to the COVID and future pandemics, and also commitments to improve transparency, restraint from export restrictions, as well as trade facilitating measures and lifting barriers. We have other priorities in the WTO. For example, we're finalizing the fisheries negotiations, which have a very important sustainability component, and also we are setting up a program to work on agriculture. So this makes me, this allows me to go to the second element of the trade policy review, which is sustainability. Trade policy clearly has a role to play to achieve climate and broader sustainability objectives. And as I mentioned earlier, the trade agreements offer a platform to have cooperation and dialogue with third countries in those areas. We have presented lately the general scheme of preferences, which is a scheme for focusing on reducing poverty on our for developing partners. There we have improved the sustainability aspects. in particular to work with our partners to meet the targets of the Paris Agreement and other environmental conventions. We have also brought forward a review of the Trade and Sustainable Development Action Plan, which will cover everything from the scope of commitments, monitoring, the possibility of sanctions in case of non-compliance. So you might have seen the results of the consultation that we published last week. We also have another set of initiatives related to sustainability, for example, in the WTO, bringing forward climate and sustainability initiatives. We also are seeking commitments from the members of the G20 countries on climate neutrality, and also making the respect of the Paris Agreement an essential element in all the FTAs of the future. The EU is also bringing forward some autonomous measures on sustainability and trade, and one that you have heard certainly is the carbon border adjusted mechanism that will allow us to deal with carbon leakage and incentivize GHG emissions reductions among our trade partners. We also have put forward the initiative to avoid placing products issues from deforestation in the EU market. So, and we have others in the pipeline, in particular, an initiative to ban products from forced labor in the European market. So let me go now to the third element of the trade policy, which is assertiveness. We must be open, and we want green trade, but we also need to deliver for our people, for the European citizens and businesses, for our companies, big and small, and to make the most we can of our agreements. So this means that we need to effectively enforce our rights and be more assertive to defend ourselves when our partners do not play with the rules. And this is why we appointed the first EU Chief Trade Enforcement Officer 1 year ago, that in order to implement those objectives. We have now several tools to help companies to enforce their rights and grasp opportunities. We have the single entry point and the access to markets tool. Since the launch of the access to markets tool in October 2020, we have had 1.8 million visitors. We are now also complementing this tool with an access to procurement that will help companies to bid for government procurements in third countries. And we also are developing other tools, like, for example, help for services exporters and investors, and also a rule on a tool on rules of origin self-assessment. So our European industry can also rely on the Commission to use our trade defense instrument to provide an effective response against unfair and harmful practices. And we also proposed very recently 2 legal instruments. The first one is to address distortions by foreign subsidies in our internal markets. And the second one is the proposal for a new anti-coercion instrument, which will give us a framework to protect the interest of the Union, of the member states, when we are facing economic coercive actions from third countries. So very often economic operators like you are a collateral damage of the coercion, and with this instrument we intend to protect yourself with a very strong message of deterrence, showing that the EU has instruments in order to defend itself. And also it should be a platform for international cooperation on economic coercion. We are also exploring options now to develop a EU strategy for export credits. So, ladies and gentlemen, the last year trade policy review provides a strategic perspective on how trade policy can contribute to the economic recovery, and also the developing the objectives linked to the green and digital transition. But the communication also underlines the need to strengthen resilience of supply chains. It's clear that supply chains have been challenges in supply chains have been intensified with the crisis of COVID, leading to supply and demand imbalances in some specific sectors more than others, and price hikes affecting many of EU industrial ecosystems and consumers. But at the same time, we must be careful not to generalize the problem. We had several disruptions in production, transport, and people's mobility, but the majority of value and supply chains have shown big resilience. We think trade openness is key in expanding the range of alternative sources of supply. So in sectors where disruptions were due to surging demand and supply shortages, for example, as we saw in the health sector, supply could be restored swiftly. And the private sector has a central role to play in assessing these risks and balancing the just-in-time production with appropriate safeguards. But at the same time, the Commission is looking on how we can make supply chains in critical sectors more resilient. And in this context, we have announced the European Chips Act to tackle shortages in global supply of semiconductors. And in the recent industrial policy review, we have identified a limited number of possible strategic dependencies in the most sensitive industrial sectors, and we propose measures to address them. Once these dependencies are confirmed by the industries themselves and by the member states, we have a number of policy tools that may come into play, for example, including crisis preparedness, diversifying sources of supply, creating strategic reserves, or supporting production in the EU. But in all cases, we need a very, very careful cost and benefits analysis when we are making concrete policy proposals. So what I can tell you is that the Commission is monitoring this issue very closely, and we need to be really aware of what are our current and possible future strategic dependencies. But at the same time, we should keep trade as open as possible. In conclusion, the policy priorities and the focus of the trade policy is changing, but one thing is constant, is the importance of trade and the central role of trade in our priorities, economic, environmental, social, or political. And this is really important. I'm conscious of time now, so Philippe, I will without further ado, I will give you back the floor again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rueda-Khatri, for giving us this very clear overview of the priorities of the Commission when it comes to trade and supply chains and what can really be done in practical terms to support industry. And I think from the side of a sectoral association, we are really delighted to have such a proactive trade policy coming out of the European Commission in these days and years. So that's really something very positive for our sector. And I think in a lot of what you said, there's a lot of opportunities for our sector to benefit. As you know, Made in Europe is strong in our sector, as is trade. International trade is something where our sector, despite being quite SME heavy, is very strong. So I think all of this put together will be a strong element of recovery from the crisis and also building back better. We would now move on to the next part of our agenda, which is to talk a bit about the experience of the boating industry, where we will start first with a boat builder, then move on to a supplier. For the boat builder side, we have one of the leading companies in the building of pleasure boats, Bavaria Yachts from Germany, from Bavaria to be precise. And the first speaker on this session is Mark Diening, the CEO of Bavaria Yachts, who's, I would say, still fairly new within his first year at Bavaria. Before he was also CEO of some other companies like Magiros and also working in consultancy. So Mark, I'll give the floor to you. How's the situation in Giebelstadt?
Thank you, Philip. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Situation is positive, although I would join all of you stating that I would have preferred to have a coffee not in my office, but with you again, especially for me, as I'm a little bit more than half a year in the industry now. But anyhow, I mean, let's take this as a positive challenge going forward. You can imagine that the topic of today is the topic which kept me most busy since I joined Bavaria. So I'm very happy that we can have a discussion, at least virtually. during the course of this morning. I think what we look at the moment is a kind of unique combination of enormous opportunities and at the same time enormous challenges. And I think this combination is really a little bit unprecedented, at least for a few decades, because either it was positive or it was negative. But continuing on the introductory words of trade, and I think our industry was at the forehead of trade for centuries. So I think there's hardly any international trade industry closer than shipbuilding. We see that the pandemic had a significant shift of spending and also of leisure and holiday behavior in Europe towards the boat industry. So what we see, we are very upbeat, we are very optimistic that we see a unique trend at the moment, which might persist also in the long run. And so there should be a lot of reason to be very optimistic looking forward. But at the same time, and this is what I will concentrate on during the course of my short presentation, is that we also have unique challenges on the supply chain. So if you look at the supply chain situation today, it might be as unstable as it hasn't been for years, if not decades. It becomes very unpredictable and fragile. And the combination of the two is a little bit of a pity, because instead of using all the forward momentum for our industry and for the European leisure and holiday industry, we need to make sure that we are able to supply the demand which we see building up at the moment. I think it's clear what happened to the industries worldwide and also to the logistics, especially in the first pandemic when we saw the shutdown of production in many European and but also in Asian countries. We had the transport issues, sea transport, shipping routes where we scheduled. Land transport within Europe was a significant issue, even between Italy and Austria. We all remember more than 100 kilometers of trucks lining up in front of the Austrian border, the Brexit. So this is something which hit us at a time of historic high demand. And this is preliminary products, which is semiconductors, it's end products. And I mean, we all know it from other industries as well. If you need to wait 18 months for an electrical bicycle, you're not surprised that also the lead times go up. And just the change which engine you put into your boat might change the lead time of your product by 6 to 12 months. I think this is something which is unique in terms of the overall situation. But it's not only the disruptions and the fact that you cannot predict the industry, it's also the high demand. And if we look at the production numbers and scaling up the production numbers due to the demand, this puts a big constraint on the whole supply chain, because a lot of our partners, a lot of our suppliers are small, medium enterprises, etc. And scaling up 30, 40, 50% within 12 months is a challenge when you want to keep quality as well as the quantity of delivery. And for certain products, I think it's known to everyone in the industry that there are kind of oligopoly structures behind, and also there are some technology or certification restrictions, which makes it difficult to just swap and change suppliers from one to the next in case of short-term disruption. In the long term, you can change everything, but within 1, 2, 3, 6 months, we have significant challenges when it comes to adjusting the supply to the overall demand. And don't get me wrong on this, and we have a lot of our suppliers on the call today. It's not that we have bad suppliers in the industry. It's not that there is any bad intention, but I think the suppliers on their level are struggling as much as we do as an OEM, because they also don't have the full transparency across their supply chain. Because even with a lot of European suppliers, which at least we at Bavaria are using, there are always semiconductors, little parts, which our suppliers source from Asia, other parts of Europe, or other parts of the world. So I think it's lack of transparency and lack of communication, maybe even more than the pure physical demand. And this leads to behavior of uncertainty. So people start to stockpile, people start to purchase more than they need just to get something. And this is tightening the capacity even more than necessary. And And when we come into this kind of vicious circle where longer lead times create more safety stock, which again creates longer lead times. And I think this is the situation we are in at the moment. What did we do? We did the same everyone else did in the beginning. We tried to build up buffers because that is the short-term thing you can do in order to protect ourselves from disruptions in transport and logistics or in supply. So if you would be in Giebelstadt, and Philip, you mentioned it, you would see a lot of temporary tents outside because we just needed to create buffer for twice to 3 times the historic material stock we have in order to make sure that we are able to keep the production going. And of course, this is also capital. So that means also a longer supply chain. The amount of capital which is tied into the supply chain is much higher, which is creating another challenge for all of us. And this led to a situation where we had months of delay delivering to our suppliers and also delivering to our end customers just because of a few missing parts. And after a major restructuring and rescheduling in autumn of the year, and much closer collaboration with our suppliers, we have been able to stabilize the situation. But the key for us was transparency across the supply chain and different forecasting. It's not creating more safety stock. It's not putting pressure on our suppliers. It is just making sure that the whole supply chain across all the levels is as transparent as possible in order to avoid inefficiencies across the supply chain. And that also leads to the fact that we are closer to a lot of you than ever before. So instead of sending emails and talking once a month, with most of you, we at least talk weekly, if not daily, in order to make sure that all these disruptions are managed in the best possible way. Still, I have to say, and this is something which we can work on, that I still see 2 groups of suppliers. One is really trying to give that transparency, understanding that at least we as an OEM believe that every supplier is doing its best, and it is just about the better solution. But we also partially see some suppliers who think that in this situation of shortage, it's a good moment to over proportionally increase the margin. And I think this is something which we also need to avoid, and I will come back to the situation as well, because there are always cycles in our industry, and I think it's always good to take a good partnership approach in the peaks as well as in the troughs of the industrial cycles. That means we also looked at the logistics in order to make it more robust, especially when it comes to international logistics, which in the first lockdown situation was a significant issue for us. But overall, I can say that also after 1.5 years, 2 years, we got used to the situation. And with the transparency and the partnership, we have been able to reduce the disruptions as much as possible. So in the last half year, we have an on-time delivery of more than 90% despite all these disruptions. And this is only due to the collaboration with our suppliers, which were willing to share their issues and build common plans going forward. That doesn't mean that the crisis is over. So looking forward into the next 6 to 12 months, we expect that this situation will not significantly improve, but we will hopefully improve in managing the situation. I mentioned already before that we see significant price increases, and I think we also heard it in the speech before. And I think this is something which I also want to mention, because of course some supply prices are getting up. We all know about electricity, energy, etc. But we also see over proportional price increases. And this is a significant challenge for us because we have lead times of 12-24 months. We still offer fixed prices to our end customers. So we need to forecast for 24 months the price development, which in this situation is close to being impossible when your suppliers commit to weeks or maybe a few months. And this could lead to a situation of increasing prices, safety buffers, safety margins, etc. And my big concern is that if we do that in the industry in an over proportional safety approach, we will kill the positive demand which we see. Because if you look at the price of yachts worldwide, also in Europe, new or used, we saw a significant peak in prices. And I think it's a good moment at the moment to use the demand and to answer to the demand in order to win customers who will stick with us for the coming decades. So what can we do together? I already mentioned transparency and full honesty across the supply chain, because this only allows us to put the right measures in place to get confidence, prevent unnecessary stock ordering at the different stages of the supply chain. Second, I think we should fight against cost increases and the inflation of the prices where it's not needed, because this might stall a demand and a unique market situation to win new customers and new generations of boaters across the world, and make sure that also in the trough we will be closer to real cost increases rather than using the opportunity we have at the moment. But also, and this is where politics is playing their role, we need to make sure that the international movements of goods will be protected, not at all costs. So of course we need to take the necessary protective measures, but we need to make sure that this is staying with us in a more predictable way, and this is including the Asian transport, etc., and less bureaucracy in the approach could help. I mean, we saw it when you look at vaccination. We achieved in 2 years what we used to do in 10 years before. So let's do the same in the boating industry. I mean, let's take the example and let's take the regulations also in other parts of the industry to make sure that we are coming out more dynamic of this crisis than before. And a last comment, which also goes towards the opportunities which we might want to pursue from Brussels and from the national governments. And I think we saw that dependency on one single supplier or one single country or one single region is not the most resilient network. So it might be a little bit counterproductive or counterintuitive in the beginning to say we want to have 2 supply areas for the same rather than maximizing economies of scale in one. But think about medication from India or from Asia. We are very dependent, and I believe it's a good wake-up call for us that what is the most efficient on paper is not necessarily the most efficient in the crisis. So building up competencies, industrial competencies and technologies, not only in one part of the world or in one country, I think is the direction to go. It doesn't need to be Europe, but at least it needs to be not all eggs into one basket approach. And if it's Europe, of course, we will be happy as well to play a role in that development. And I think this is where politics and industry can work together in order to make sure that at the end of the crisis, we are much more resilient, and hopefully it will not happen again in the next decades, but we would be at least better prepared. So looking at the unique situation of opportunities and threat, how we handle the situation in the next 12, 24 months will determine how our industry will look like in the next decade. Let's create a framework which is as transparent as possible and provides a resilient industrial setup. Let's take the opportunities, seize the moment to improve the attractiveness of a yachting environment for end customers so that we win new friends and customers for the decades to come, and at the same time improve the competitiveness of the industry. And with all these up and downs and unpredictability, let's not forget, let's stay calm at the helm, also in turbulent times, and make sure that we capitalize the positive side and mitigate the risk. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the discussion later today.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I think it's what you highlighted is very important. This dual challenge, strong and growing demand, but at the same time, we see severe disruptions of a supply chain. And thank you also for this very honest assessment and also sharing a bit what you do at Bavaria in very practical terms. And I think what I take away and what we can take away is that really cooperation across the sector, but also cooperation between industry and politics is really important to take advantage of these opportunities and make sure that we do meet the challenges that we have. I'm sure we'll get back to some of what you already discussed in our next part of the session, which is now moving on to suppliers. And you already talked a bit about the role of suppliers, and we have no one better than Alessandro Gianneschi, who's the CEO of Gianneschi Pumps and Blowers, but he's also the Vice President of the Italian Marine Industry Confederation, Confindustria Nautica, and the president of the sectoral association of accessories within Confindustria Nautica. So I'm sure he can give us a great overview of what suppliers are doing and how he sees the situation developing. Alessandro, over to you.
Thank you, Philip, and good morning, everybody. So waiting to have the next year coffee all together. I'll briefly go through some of the points we already discussed the previous person before. If you can go to the next slide, please. As a majority of the Italian business, I run with my brother a family-owned company that we produce accessories for the marine business. So, of course, last year we all faced a strong impact in what was the lockdown situation, and when we restart, Italy was one of the first country to restart. So we have to focus immediately what was the new situation in the markets. So from our side, we decided to enlarge the warehouse for the new restart, because of course we were positive in a stronger impact after the pandemic situation. Of course, we were hoping there was a shorter case than what is in reality indeed we are facing, and of course we try to invest a lot in instantly looking towards the future. With my role in the Confindustria Nautica, if we can go to the next slide, and together with other vice presidents and the staff, we are trying to support a company in the export markets and all the trade shows, but also in what is all the legislative proposal, and also structuring some market data statistic in order to try to also incentivize a sort of marine culture, okay, and that this can bring a growth to the boat tourism. Confindustria Nautica, as we know, is a part of also EBI and ICOMIA, and we try to all together to also to face this situation. If you go to the next one, please. Confindustria Nautica is also the organizer of the Genoa Boat Show. Last year we faced practically was for mostly the Italian market, and not only, maybe also some places in Europe, the first trade show. So we really face from one side a strange situation, but from the other side also the positive aspect of be back in a physical way. But the trend of the market at that point was still uncertain before doing the show, was pretty positive after the show. And this is the growth restart, or coming back, that we then face also this year in let's say in the other shows that was held. Of course, we start thinking about the first step of this critical problem that was starting coming over, and we make with the Confindustria Nautica some of questionnaire within our members in order to try to have some feedback from the companies and concrete situation and analysis of the Italian markets. And of course, consequently, even the export markets within the company, the manufacturing and produce or distribute accessories towards their customer, whatever is a dealer or a shipyard. We studied and we saw that the majority of the raw material and components was coming over from mainland, Italy, Far East, China, USA, Germany, and Japan. This is in order of importance and percentages. Actually, the delivery time of the raw material was also starting increasing, and we faced that the trend of the raw material was also changing. So whatever was mainly, I would say, mostly of the material within 8-10 weeks will change in a different scenario. And the new scenario that we still are facing is around within the 4 weeks, around 25 of the companies receiving the material as a lead time, 5 to 8 weeks for the 45 of the percentage, and 9 to 15 weeks for the 17 of the people. Over this is going pretty over, but is only for a part of the components. So the majority still was acceptable within the 8 weeks, I would say. Then we tried also to ask to our members if their supplier was requiring a sort of program. So they were scheduling your order in order to organize the production, but also to have a certain warranty on the lead time. 45% of the people were saying yes, they were already asking this organization in the past. 28, they start with this situation, so organizing themselves, and only 20% was partially. A very small part that is covering the only 7% of our investigation, let's say, was scheduling is not required. So majority, they immediately take front of this situation, trying to organize a better situation. This is in terms of order, but also in terms of certain availability and also forecast. We mentioned about price before. For sure, we are facing last year a first part of increase. I have to say that mostly of the manufacturing in the Italian markets, we were able to absorb last year increase, and we turn this increase, we will see also later, to the second part of the year. But about price, definitely, I mean, I would say 93% of the sample, they said that they increased their price list. In which percentage? 38% they declare 10% of increase, while 30% from 10 to 20%, and the other 20% from 20 to 50%. Of course, this part is more in connection with what is directly involving the raw material, so bronze, stainless steel, copper, and other aluminium. So directly on when the manufacturing chain is pretty complete process. If we go to the next slide, what we can try to do, when our members, they were trying to do a better organization, so with the inadequate planning of their order, that was the majority, with the 76% of the people involved. Another 18%, they complained that they were mentioned that the customer were sending the order in a proper way, and only 15% they were not planning. This, of course, became strategically important, as previously was mentioned, transparency. I'm totally agree, and of course, we were able to start again first part of last year almost a greater cooperation between the yards and suppliers. So what we face that mostly of the shipper were not, especially the shipper, they are doing not so big numbers like maybe we saw before Bavaria, but other shippers that maybe are doing bigger sites and less numbers during the year. Previously, they were placing the order upfront, a sales or close to the delivery. They change and we change together our mentality. So that's probably an important step that we have to keep also for this year and next future, especially in this moment that the market is strongly and positive increase, this sort of cooperation, because will be fundamental to have a better cooperation where as a supplier we have to be honest and transparent, because also we have to probably change the way of cooperate with the shipper. And this, of course, can introduce another point. The importance of we have no more a slide about this, but the importance of a position in between. I'm talking about the role of the dealer and distribution, because of course, as manufacturing company, we are still in connection and depending for some part and components from, of course, from our suppliers. We are trying to cut the situation where it's depending on supplier components. So we have nothing to do unless try different source or trying to organize better our production. Or we have everything in-house and we can organize a production. Of course, in this will be fundamental the right and the clever aspect of the delivery and forecast from the boat builder, and the dealer and the distributor became fundamental because it is the person is a sort of in a situation in between, because a better stock of components, a better stock of even finished product to the dealer can be a better contribute to the local builder and organize even a delivery, avoiding confusion, because probably and surely some shipyard will try to buy as much as possible in order to guarantee their production. So in order to avoid this, the dealer and distribution can be a fundamental role in between these parts. And of course, also for the future, we have to probably see parcel shipment. From one side can increase a cost of the shipment, but from the other side can avoid to stop the boat line production. Another aspect that we're facing is that in several places, the production is going back to local area. This is, I think, very good because, first of all, can guarantee to the manufacturing company a better control on a production, but also on a quality. Then we can assure a better and complete products that we can supply to the shipper and to our customer. And of course, we can even cut a little bit of the logistic cost or problem that we face with the container in the last year and in another period. So again, and in conclusion, we are facing is through a very important issue, but also from the other side, we are in a very strong moment in the business. I think rather than other business like industrial or even automotive, the marine business at the end is a unique community, sorry. And in this case, it means that the step on the right and the left side is very close to our process of working. And with some small change and a better cooperation, I'm sure we can for sure reduce the delay in the production and give a better support to our industry. And at the end, our industry is a global industry, but the people that we work with we know each other since many years in a worldwide between the worldwide trade show or worldwide community. So really we can try to work each other in a strong and a better way to achieve and deliver the order that we are all facing, because I think this positive situation for sure will last at least a couple of years, and so we have to be ready and quick for the demand changing our even way of working to the markets. So I'll give you back the floor, and thank you, Philip, and to everybody.
Thank you to you, Alessandro. That was very useful to see some concrete numbers, how the Italian sector, Italian suppliers are dealing with the situation. Very clear to see where the challenges are, but also thank you for highlighting some of the opportunities coming from this, strengthening made in Italy, in your case, strengthening made in Europe in all our cases. So I think that's something positive that we can take away. And you already mentioned that our sector is quite unique, but we can always learn from other sectors as well. And you mentioned the automotive sector. And to move to our last speaker before we go into the Q&A, we have Michael Heinemann, who's the CEO of an automotive supplier called Phoenix Contact, and he will give a bit of a perspective from the automotive sector. Michael Heinemann, he began his career at Phoenix Contact already in 1992 and has been in different positions at the company since. And on top of this all, he's also a keen boater, I hear, so I'm sure he's fantastically placed to give us some insights today. So Michael, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, as you already said, I'm a boater as well. So I did not been asked long to participate in this meeting. And to be honest as well, it was a plan to combine the nice with the necessary, and to also to have a chance to visit the fair, to visit the boat. But it's a pity that the fair was cancelled, but we all can understand the circumstances. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome from my side. I would like to share you some information about the company, what we are doing, and especially I'm responsible for the e-mobility part of Phoenix Contact, what we are doing in the industry of automotive and electrification. So who is Phoenix Contact? Phoenix Contact, I think, is not very well known in the boating industry. Phoenix Contact was founded in 1923, and Phoenix Contact was the inventor of the terminal block, paving the way for electrification. And today, Phoenix Contact is a manufacturer of electric connection as well as automation technology. And yes, the corporate headquarters you can see here on the slide is located in Blomberg in Germany. Blomberg is not very well known over the world because it's a very, very small village. Blomberg is located in the middle of Germany, as we say, between Bielefeld, Paderborn, and Hanover. And before I start, I would like to share a spotlight of our vision. The vision of the all-electric society. The all-electric society is a world where the energy consumption of the whole world will be supplied by renewable energy. Please have a look.
Digitalization is changing the way we live and work. The question of how people will live in the future is one that we all decide together. On all continents, in all countries of the world. These challenges are great opportunities for all of us. The global society of the future needs our know-how, creativity, and passion. Needs us to pave the way for sustainable development in all important sectors. Together, we can give the right answers to the questions of today and tomorrow. Together, we will pave the way to the all-electric society, and thus make a significant contribution to a sustainable future for the global society. Empowering the all-electric society.
Okay, so we are active in all these sectors of electrification, such as the building industry. So this very nice building I'm just standing here was automated with our own technologies. We are active in the industry. We are active in the infrastructure. This picture that we have here is roads and tunnels, but we are also active and very active in waterways and in locks. We are active in the energy, in the past with the fossil energies, and now more in the renewable energies, and of course in the mobility sector. And this is exactly where I am responsible for. And when it comes to e-mobility, it is also our ambition and our mission to really accelerate the world's transformation to sustainable mobility. That is where we stand for, and that is what we are doing. And we believe that the mobility will change from combustion engines into sustainable engines, and the individual transport will be full electric for sure. Buses and trucks, so the heavy vehicles as well as the boats, will be also electric and maybe hybrid for some reason. So electromobility must be suitable for everyday use. That is the exact the challenge, and for that we need a long range and for long range, we need big batteries, and therefore, at the end, we need to fast charge the batteries. What we are doing, and I'm coming a little bit to the products, not too much. So we are covering the entire charging process from the vehicle. This is a vehicle inlet, which comes to the cars, to the infrastructure. And only with this, so producing and developing and selling the products to both sides, to the vehicle side as well as to the infrastructure side, we can really understand the whole system and can optimize it. So just some slides about the product. So all of our recent portfolio for the automotive industry, we do have all the country versions available. We have the standard for the North American market. We have the standard for the European market, which is called CCS, Combined Charging System, as well as for the Asian market. So all country versions are available, and we are supplying 13 German and European car manufacturers with our products here to the automotive industry. And besides this, many newcomers and many startups. Most of them are located in Asia. China is, I think, number one when it comes to startups and new manufacturers for the car industry. On the infrastructure side, that is the other part of the portfolio, we build all the devices that our customers need to build up charging poles, like cables, as we have seen here, the charge controllers. The charge controllers are the electronic components which do the communication between the vehicle and the charging infrastructure. We do have the operator terminals, we do have the software, and we do have all the other components that are needed in the entire product range of Phoenix Contact, such as surge voltage protection, energy meters, power electronics, and so on. When it comes to our worldwide locations, so we started our first products not in 2013. We started our first products in 2009. And yeah, at that time, I think nobody would bet that e-mobility really comes to a success like we have it today. So the first drivers at that time comes from bicycles, from electrified bicycles to the first electrified cars. And as I said, nobody was betting on the implementation of e-mobility like we see it today. 2013, we founded our own subsidiary for the e-mobility business because of the standard that we have to fulfill, the IATF standard. So when you are going to deliver the goods to the automotive industry, you have to have an in-time supply. So without any delays, we supply our goods directly to the OEMs, and therefore we need this standard. The next company that we have in our e-mobility business is a company in China, mainly for the local industry, for the local car industry in China. And we, in 2021, so last year, we founded a new location in Poland. It is a big production facility with more than 15,000 square meters just for cable production for the charge cables. So overall, the e-mobility group is more or less 880 people so far. Of course, when e-mobility really can make should make the breakthrough, standardization is very important. And we was the beginners in this standardization. So we are a founding member of the SHARIN. SHARIN is a leading global association with a scope to promote interoperability based on the combined charging system. So they make sure that one system is all over the world used, and a car which is coming from the brand number 1 can be charged at a public charging station at the same way like a car from the company B. Then the NPM, the National Platform Mobility, this is a German association of experts consulting the federal government of Germany with all questions of e-mobility. And the third association is the BEM, which means Bundesverband Elektromobilität. It is quite German. And this is an association for Germany for the electromobility. In the standardization, so we were from the beginning pioneers for DC charging, because only with DC charging we can really provide a high power to the vehicle and reduce the charge time. For us, it's clear that a standard must be set up, and you can see the steps. It took 2 years to come to the recent standard that we have right now. So right now we are also the inventor of this HPC technology. So this is this charging technology, and yeah, today 350 kilowatt is the standard at the highways. So when you stop at the highways to charge your electric car, you can get up to 350 kilowatt 350 kilowatt charging power to your car. Our system is ready for 500 kilowatt, is suitable for 500 kilowatt, so there is any space for increasing the power. So, but what all these stuff has to do with boats, with yachts. And when I have a look in my own boat, and I have a look in the engine compartment, I find 2 big diesel engines that usually used in trucks. And now I come to the link to the boats. So when we deliver the charging systems to the buses and to the trucks, we can also deliver the charging system to boat manufacturers. So as we see here in this picture, a full electric truck can be charged with 500 kilowatt. That is right now the standard, and that is not the end. With the same system, with the CCS Type 2 system, the standard here in Europe, we have a prototype which is running up to 800 kilowatt. As I said, it's running as a prototype, so we can give much more power to the vehicles. Ferries need much more power. This is a funny picture that I saw, a full electric ferry, and you can count by yourself how many charge connectors have to be plugged. So it is, like we say in Germany, much helps much. So this is not a solution from ourselves. That is not a solution we would do. We would do the next level of charging, which is called megawatt charging. The system is called MCS. And what you can see here is a system, a prototype, which is running. And with this, it is a little bit hidden. You will see just the setup for the test. So it is, of course, we are just preparing all the patents on that. But this charging system, the megawatt charging system, can deliver up to 4.5 megawatt. And in my first slide, you have seen the whole premises of the Phoenix Contact headquarters in Blomberg, where 20,000 people are working. And for this whole premises, you just need 2 of these plugs to connect the whole premises to the grid. That is to understand which high power that delivers. So that was the short introduction of what we do, what Phoenix Contact is doing, especially what Phoenix Contact e-mobility is doing. Yes, and I'm lucky to hear all the discussion and to participate also in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heinemann. Very interesting to hear from you about Phoenix Contact and the different solutions you have available as well. We're now going into the Q&A part, and if there are any questions from our great participants, please put them into the Q&A. I will just take the opportunity, because we also received some questions in advance. I will take this opportunity to give a quick question to you, Mr. Heinemann, if you could just respond briefly. How is the supply chain situation for your company at the moment? Do you experience similar problems?
I expected that question because I saw all the other speeches are more related to the supply and to the situation on the market. So, of course, we do have challenges as well. But as you know, we are delivering with a part of our portfolio directly to the car manufacturers. And to be honest, so far, we was not the reason for a line stop at these 13 car manufacturers. So things are going quite okay, quite good. The biggest problem that we are facing is the microelectronics, of course, for the charge controllers, and also the charging inlet. It looks like a stupid socket, but it also contains microelectronics inside, and this is the biggest challenge for us. So not to stop the line at the car manufacturers because of a lack of components.
Thank you very much, Mr. Heinemann. And by the way, you win definitely the award for the greatest background, not virtual background, but real background. So thank you for joining us from the dialogue space at Phoenix Contact. I would like to have Ms. Rueda Katri back, if she is still with us, to hear if she has something to respond to some of the points we heard earlier from Martine and Alessandro Gianeschi about the trade situation and supply chain challenges.
Thank you very much, Philip. I was really delighted to hear these experiences, direct experiences of the industry in facing the supply chain, and also very interesting presentation from Michael on the development of the e-mobility. And what I can tell you is that it's clear that the European Union has made the commitment to go to carbon neutral economy by 2050, which is a strong challenge. Electric mobility will be, as he said, one of the, I mean, it will be the main mobility, the way of mobility in some years. The EU has even proposed some maximum limits for use of thermic motors and engines. So I think that during this presentation we have been really seeing what will be the trends for the future in mobility, including for both the industry. But I also was really struck by the experiences in managing the supply chain, and in particular, and how the industries of themselves being dealing with the issue and finding solutions, which is what we expected that the industry will do. I underline that we fully share that transparency is one of the main issues. And first of all, transparency within the single market, within the EU member states. We're following very closely any possible problems that we might have on transport between member states. And this is one of the first things that the Commission did at the beginning of the pandemic, to try to create green lanes in order to avoid that there was these challenges, at least within the EU. Better cooperation, also very important, not only among member states, but also with third countries. We also share this concern. We need to work better with third countries in order to avoid that there is this kind of restrictions to exports. We fully support you on that, and we're ready to help you if needed. And then the increased challenges faced with the lack of semiconductors. In that sense, the EU has proposed a new European Chips Act that will try to integrate national efforts to be done on to have a coherent vision in the EU on about semiconductors, and put together research, design, and manufacturing capacities. So it's clear that this is really an issue of concern for all you as an industry, and we hope that this CHIPS Act can very quickly develop and be fully implemented. And one last comment we fully share, and we think it's really very important that it will be part of the trade policy review. I didn't mention earlier, but I can assure you that Michael mentioned how important is standardization, is that we work with the same regulations. And this is one of the areas we are developing now, how to improve regulatory cooperation with our neighbors, and also work on regulatory cooperation with the US. And this is the main task of the Trade and Technology Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much for responding on those points. Very interesting and clear to hear. One of the questions we received from our participants is also about Brexit and the immediate impact of Brexit on boat builders and suppliers. Maybe Alessandro or Mark, I don't know if you have something to say on that. How's the situation? How are you preparing for all of this situation? You're both too polite. I will.
Okay.
You mentioned Alessandro first. Maybe Alessandro, I give you the lead and then I add my comments.
Thank you. Well, at the moment, from our point of view, as manufacturing, we are looking at Brexit like we look at any other country that is not in the European community. So from a logistic point of view, document and bureaucracy point of view, we are not facing particular problem like working in US or Middle East or Turkey from a documentation point of view. On a supply chain, this can be a little bit longer delivery times due to the of course, the new documentation required, but since already 1 year or even before, we didn't face any particular problem at the moment. Of course, we're getting inquiries from our customer in UK to, in case of possible problem, could come over in the future to find local support in warehouse or even a dealer for the deliveries of the product. But till now, I have to say, no particular problem I face.
What Alessandro was saying, I think we have the same experiences. The only thing which made it really special, I believe, was the fact that the timing was a little bit of a surprise at the end of the day. I think no one was really prepared because there were a lot of attempts, etc. And then it really happened. So I think this was the only thing which really created problems for us because we were stockpiling before. Yeah, we did countermeasures, things were postponed. So this was the biggest problem for us. A bit longer lead time would have helped. And the second is due to the higher bureaucracy and the problems they have in the UK at the moment. We of course see this transport topic, which we discussed before, which is a little bit more of an issue looking into the UK. But I hope that that our friends in the UK get it solved very soon, because as Alessandro was mentioning, it works with other regions of the world which are not as close emotionally and from a legal system. So why shouldn't it work in a few months from now if we put the right protections in place in the UK as well?
Thank you, Mark. A clear call for an approach, a good approach to business. Let's get back to business with the UK as well. Looking at the time, I'm afraid we're getting to the end of this international breakfast meeting. And to conclude and give us some final remarks, I wanted to give the floor to the president of European boating industry, Jean-Pierre Gaudin. Jean-Pierre.
Thank you very much, Philip. What I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great pleasure listening to all speakers and learning about such important topic for businesses in the boating sector. It was not without regret that the 2022 edition of the Boat Düsseldorf was once again cancelled due to the ongoing pandemic. However, we are proud of having offered the opportunity to attend the International Breakfast Meeting as an online event. During the past 7 years, it has become an estimate platform for businesses, journalists, and all boating professionals. This edition has met the high expectation we all had. I'm sure all the participants today will join me in thanking our excellent speakers. Before closing the event, as president of EBI, I would like to share with you some important updates concerning our organization that come to an important turning point. 2021 has been another challenging year, characterized by the presence of the COVID-19. However, despite the many difficulties, we are glad that our industry has proven itself resilient and was able to strengthen its position in the leisure activity space. This is, of course, thanks to the outstanding work and dedication of many companies and their employees. We are now witnessing several companies successfully seizing the new opportunities and trends. At the same time, at the political level, several developments are going to change the context surrounding boating businesses, resulting in many challenges and opportunities for the next year to come. The EU has shown an unprecedented commitment to pushing decarbonization. It has put forward several policy initiatives within the European Green Deal that will have a long-term impact on our industry. Over the recent years, boating companies have not stood by passively, but have taken up the challenge of sustainability by developing innovative solutions that will change the market towards a more environmentally sustained approach. In light of this development, we have realized that to continue defending the interests of its members in a fast-changing environment, EBI needs to evolve towards a new mission of advancing and representing a sustainable boating industry. Keeping this in mind, we will launch a new strategy for the period of 2022 to 2025 this afternoon. It will be built on a strong set of core action and new initiatives that EBI will lead. Together with the new strategy, EBI will also launch a new branding that perfectly represents our new course. We will stand strong for all boating companies in Europe, giving them a powerful voice toward the EU institutions and stakeholders. The strategy will focus on those policy areas that we identified as crucial for the future of our industry. At the core of our new strategy is the element of competitiveness and keeping Europe as a leading role in manufacturing services and nautical tourism. Made in Europe is a key word. This is also crucial for the exciting new development around sustainability and digitalization that will transform our sector in the next year and decades. We are very excited to start this new journey, and we will communicate more details about our new strategy in the coming days. And now, I would like to bring this international breakfast meeting to a close. I would like to thank our partner, Boot Düsseldorf. I would like to especially thank its project manager, Mr. Petros Michelidakis, and the president of the show, Mr. Robert Marks. It's an honor every year to work with you and your team to bring about the International Breakfast Meeting, and I'm very much looking forward to the 2023 edition. After the second consecutive cancellation of the Boot Düsseldorf, I'm sure that we all feel impatient and meet physically at Boot Düsseldorf 2023 after such a long stop. Thank you once again to all speakers and to all participants, and I hope to see you next January. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean-Pierre, for those concluding remarks. And yes, From my side, it just remains to be said that thank you very much to all our speakers, Dr. Reda Katri, Petros Michilidakis, Robert Marx, Mark Diening, Alessandro Gianesti, Michael Heinemann, and finally Jean-Pierre Goudon. I really wish we could now meet for a coffee or have a walk around the show, but let's just agree that we meet each other next year in Düsseldorf, have lunch together and have a walk at the show. So thank you very much to all our speakers, to all our participants, and have a nice rest of the day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.